firm believer in finding the right shoe to accommodate your needs. I also believe that not every shoe is well equipped to meet every need, and that's why there are distinctions like running shoe, walking shoe, cross trainer, and that's why those are helpful. What's not helpful though is not knowing what makes a cross trainer a good cross trainer. And quite frankly, I'm sure that there are lots of people out there who have no idea what a cross trainer is, and that's a problem. You need to know what's out there so that you can make sure that not only you're getting everything that you need, but that you don't accidentally injure yourself. That being said, let me see if I can give you a few tips in picking a good cross trainer. And here to help me out is currently my own cross trainer, and this is the Saucony Barada. Say hi, shoe. Hey, boo. All right, so let's do this. Number 1, mesh, breathability. Breathability is the difference between your foot sloshing around and gunk and, I don't know, you actually being comfortable in your shoe. Whereas a walking shoe might not be expecting a ton of sweat. You want your cross trainer to be able to handle the high temperature and the temperature changes, and even essentially the sweat that's going to come from your foot. So it should not only have mesh, but it should also be moisture wicking. And even though it feels like all the cross trainers out right now are going to have some kind of moisture wicking or some kind of mesh on the outside, you want to be able to spot that and identify that as a trait that something that's made like a cross trainer is going to have. So that's number 1. Number 2 is flexibility. Jumping jacks, jumping rope, burpees, push-ups. All of this stuff requires you to be able to bend your foot without injury. And quite frankly, push-ups, burpees, all of this stuff is uncomfortable enough. Trying to do one on your tippy toes because, your shoes won't give in any way is unbearable. One of the fastest ways to develop corns is an inflexible shoe. You want it to be able to move with your foot the way that you need it to. This shoe has the mesh up top. So there's a lot of give there. But right here, specifically right here, you want that to do that. Seriously. You want the shoe to be flexible. Corns don't come from just high heels, y'all. Trust me. Next tip, shock absorption. And I feel like the heavier you are, the more important this is. You're going to want to take your fingers, your thumbs, and put them inside the shoe. Put your rest of your fingers on the outside and squeeze. Is there a little bit of give? We've all landed on the heels of our feet the wrong way at least once. And we're all bound to do it again, even though we're not supposed to. You want to make sure that you have shock absorption here because, landing on your heels repeatedly not only causes your ankles to be sore, but your calves to be sore, which affects your knees. It all goes up the chain. And if you don't fix it, you are continuously sore in your hips, and nobody is here for that. Nobody's trying to deal with that throughout the day. So trust me, you want the shoe to have a little bit of give. I can't really squeeze it from the back, but you can see from the side, it's got a little bit of give there. You want that. A good cross trainer is going to have that. My next tip is about lateral support. When I talk about lateral movement, I mean side to side. So like, how basketball players, this here, that's lateral movement. So if I did a lunge to the side out that way, that's a lateral lunge. You want a shoe that has lateral support, and lateral support comes in a few ways. I'm mostly thinking the soles here. So when you press your foot down, let me see if I can turn this the right way. When you press your foot down, these should spread out to the sides here. I can't really get it to do that, but you should look down and see some kind of support on the sides of your foot here and also here. The shoe should have give here, because if you do a jumping jack and your legs go out like this, your ankles tilt this way. and you want the shoe to have some give there. Otherwise, it's going to cause your ankles to be sore. You know, if a shoe only has support for forward and backward movement, that does you absolutely no good in the middle of a jumping jack or in the middle of that lateral lunge. Or if you are doing something transverse where you have to like turn and rotate, you know, your ankle is doing all this crazy stuff here. Even with the shoe tied tightly, it should have some kind of movement here. And that's part of the reason why I like this shoe here, because it has that. A lot of shoes overlook that, or they just get real lazy and just leave all mesh back here and no actual support. I want to be supported. I just don't want you controlling my whole ankle. That makes a difference. So, you know, I would consider doing a half of a jumping jack. You know, just like push your leg out and stamp it down, because that's essentially what a jumping jack is. It's a spread and then a drop. Try that and see how it feels. When you look down, does the ball of your foot feel supported? Does your ankle feel like it's still got some kind of structure, but it's giving and letting your leg do what it needs to do? Double check that, because you should always have the ability to move your ankle without interference. Otherwise, unnecessary soreness. You don't want that. Because I know somebody's going to say, well, what about those of us who have, you know, crazy high ratchet arches? I do. I have crazy arches, and this shoe is not great for that. However, I find that for those of us who have really high arches, there are very few shoes that accommodate us, because I feel like most major producers of shoes are creating shoes for the average person, and the average person doesn't have arches like us. So we should consider ourselves special or something, maybe. I don't know. But you know the drill. You know, if you know that you have a foot that needs additional support, find a good arch support provider and stick to them like glue. You know, find yourself a personal distributor if you have to. Order your junk wholesale if you need to. Do what you have to do to make sure that your foot gets the support you need. Because not supporting your arch affects the way you walk. And if it affects the way you walk, then it affects the way that your body develops. And that's a really, really uncomfortable position if your muscles are not developing proportionately, because then that's really hard to train out of a body. It takes a really long time. So you want to try to catch that before that starts. No, I feel like I'm getting a little too technical, but I think that this stuff is important to know. And I feel like fitness information gets dumbed down for people too much. And, you know, buying fitness equipment, because shoes are fitness equipment, you know, you should know exactly what makes a quality piece of equipment quality, so that you can continue to make these purchases and these choices on your own. So I know somebody's gonna ask, well, what if you overpronate? I feel like a good cross trainer should be able to accommodate both, especially because we talked about flexibility and we talked about breathability, etc. Yeah, so it should be mesh, and it should be able to accommodate if your foot rolls this way or that way, and it should be able to do it in a way that a running shoe or a walking shoe can't. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But, you know, as with any other thing, make sure that you're testing around and trying on different shoes to make sure that you have the fit that works for you. And remember, like I mentioned, lateral support, the shoe should spread. The base of the shoe should spread when you put your foot down anyway. So no matter what direction your foot rolls, you should feel supported. But you should also know that it's not ideal to do either, even though I understand there are lots of reasons that will cause somebody to have their foot roll one way or another. So make it the goal to try to fix that, but understand that a good cross trainer should be able to accommodate both. My last point would have to be, find shoes that you enjoy looking at. I mean, I personally have been loving the pink and neon yellow that I keep pretending is green thing that's been going on with a lot of different brands. And I look at my shoes and I think, oh yeah, time for me to go work out, man. You know, Ed looks at me and he's like, no, it's dinner time. There's plates on the table. And I'm like, but I want to go put on my shoes. Like, I'm ready to go work out. You know, a good pair of cross trainers, they feel good, they help you feel more capable, and then, you know, on top of that, you know, they might be a nice bright neon-y color that makes you smile. So make sure that you enjoy them in ways that not only feel good, but also look good. And you look at them and you're like, let me hit my gym swag, you know? So let me know in the comments below what your favorite cross trainers are, what shoes you love, and I will see you next time. Until then, smooches. I almost kissed that shoe, man. You wearing them joints in the subway? Ugh. Can't even kiss my hand after that. Damn.